Hello viewers, welcome back to our channel. Today we'll talk about African indigenous vegetables. They are also called African leafy vegetables or just traditional vegetables, Kienyeji vegetables. And in this video, we'll discuss why there is growing or renewed interest in indigenous vegetables. And the interest is not just in Kenya or in Africa. The interest is also at international level. We have many researchers coming from top universities from United States and Europe coming to do studies on Africa indigenous vegetables. There are many varieties of Africa indigenous vegetables. The common ones are vegetables like managu, also called the African nightshade. There is kude or cowpea. There is also terere or mchicha, also called amaranthus. There is mrenda or jute marrow. There is also saget, also called spider plant. And also we have pumpkin leaves. There are many people who don't know that pumpkin leaves are eaten as vegetables. And we are told, research shows us that pumpkin leaves are one of the indigenous vegetables with the highest iron content. And as we know, deficiency of iron causes anemia. So the interest in the indigenous vegetables is being driven by the recognition of the nutritional benefits and medicinal value of these vegetables, especially in the wake of COVID-19 and the increasing lifestyle and chronic diseases. The indigenous vegetables contain many vitamins and micronutrients. They have vitamins like vitamin A, vitamin E, vitamin D, vitamin C, and micronutrients like zinc, magnesium, calcium, manganese, iron. They also have very high protein content and fiber. We are told that diets that are rich in fiber are good for our health. Now, in the past, indigenous vegetables were not grown as cash crops or even for commercial value. Usually it was grown by rural communities on the side for home consumption. And to a large extent, actually, indigenous vegetables grew as weeds in the farm. You just found them growing in the farms as weeds. And the reason that there wasn't much interest in indigenous vegetables was because during the colonial times, there was big push for exotic vegetables like cabbage, sukuma wiki, and even spinach. And it was indigenous vegetables were also associated with like backwardness. If you are eating indigenous vegetables, it is like you are not civilized. And so the push was to eat the exotic vegetables. They were also associated with the poverty, so to speak. The other reason that the indigenous vegetables have not been popular over the years is because uh, their nutritional benefits and medicinal value was not documented. So people are not aware of the benefits of eating these vegetables. The other reason is because the seed system was not developed. With seeds like cabbage or sukuma wiki, you can easily buy the seeds from the agrovets and you plant. But for indigenous vegetable, for the longest time, you could not buy seeds from the shops. But today, the researchers have improved these indigenous vegetables. They've come up with seeds. And today you can go to an agrovet and buy seed for anything like managu, terere, mrenda, saget. You can get the seeds, particularly of the improved varieties. And the improved varieties have, for instance, bigger leaves. If it's something like managu, they are not bitter like the original varieties. The bitterness is a bit mild. Although we have many consumers who still prefer the original vegetables as opposed to the ones that have been improved. The other reason why the indigenous vegetables were not commercially grown is because many people say it's hard work to cook the indigenous vegetables, particularly the plucking the leaves from the stalks. But I think we should look at it as an opportunity for creating jobs because, for instance, if those who have orders to supply restaurants or institutions, they could employ people to pluck the leaves from the stalk so that you supply the leaves which are ready for cooking. The same with supermarkets. If they can employ people to pluck the leaves and then they sell to customers the leaves that are already prepared, I believe those would be popular with the customers. Now, the indigenous vegetables provide an opportunity for rural communities to improve their livelihood as well as to provide nutritional benefits. For instance, many rural communities, particularly in the dry areas, they suffer from malnutrition, especially children under 5 years, because they lack food that has sufficient vitamins and micronutrients. And so the indigenous vegetables would come in very handy to solve this problem. The indigenous vegetables also provide some quick returns in terms of money. And this is because once you have planted most of the indigenous vegetables, you can start harvesting after 4 weeks. And so this is a crop that, these are crops that offer very quick returns. The only issue is the market is not very well structured. We also have the challenge of the fact that these vegetables are highly perishable, and we find people come up with solutions for these challenges. For instance, we have many of the indigenous vegetables that come from Western Kenya and they are transported to Nairobi. And what farmers are doing is that they harvest the vegetables in the evening and they are transported overnight to the cities or other towns. And this is because during the night it's cool and therefore they are able to take the vegetables to the market when they are still fresh. So those are some of the coping mechanisms. But also people are adding value by drying the vegetables. Many consumers, of course, prefer the fresh vegetables, but there is also drying. The vegetables are dried. Actually, some of them are being exported to particularly Kenya, diaspora, and also other Africans who are abroad. The demand for the indigenous vegetables is actually growing, and I believe that this is going to form one of the biggest exports in future. So people dry them. Some people make powder from these vegetables, and they use the powder to enrich their stews, for instance, to add micronutrients and vitamins to their food. Um, for some vegetables like amaranthus, the terere, there is the amaranthus that is used to produce seed or the grain, and these seeds make flour, and that flour is also being used to enrich ugali, the maize flour, or the chapati flour, or even porridge, for instance. And it's interesting because the demand for this flour is so high. We have already more than 6 companies that are manufacturing amaranthus flour. And it's also interesting that we can't meet the demand such that we are importing now the amaranthus grain from Uganda and from India in order to meet the demand, because people have realized that the amaranthus grain has very many nutrients that are good for our health. And so there is a great opportunity in these vegetables. For instance, today, many of us are buying supplements from the shops. You find people are buying calcium, vitamin C, vitamin E, and many others from the pharmacies. And this is because we want to compensate for what we are not getting from our food. And so these vegetables can come in very handy because they also have other benefits like fiber. I wanted to mention a particular vegetable for those who may know called togotia. Togotia is said to have a lot of medicinal value. And I was pleasantly surprised to know that research is undergoing on for this particular vegetable, and probably soon we'll be able to buy the seeds from the shops and plant. We used to see it in the very early days, but lately you never even see it in the market. But the researchers are saying that it has a lot of value, and so we await to see it in the market. And so until next time, remember to share our videos and to also subscribe. Bye bye.